Hello everybody, welcome to another sprint demo for the Evernym team that works on Indy and Sovrin. And we're excited to have you join us for our 7th sprint in 2019. This is April 11th. And today we're going to talk a lot about our work on the Sovrin Token. We have been working hard to meet the requirements that the network governance have laid out for the token they want, and hope to get it on into an environment where people can play with it and test it out, so that the network can decide when they, how they want to proceed. So in order to get there, we've done some work with the minting tool, improving integration testing, and replacing, showing the way that fees work. We've moved is going to use the new Indy permission scheme. So we're going to talk about that in this demo. But first, I want to pause for our big news. Hyperledger has approved Indy to be an active project to leave incubation, which is exciting. The Hyperledger team has a lot of requirements to be an active project. It was 2 pages on the checklist and required a security audit, static analysis, CI/CD, diverse community governance, lots of contributors, documentation. It's just the whole gamut of a mature project. And so really proud of the team for meeting those requirements, not just the Evernym team, but the Hyperledger Indy team. Spans a lot of different organizations. I feel like we've really matured in how we collaborate together. We work well with the hype process to decide on the project standards and review each other's pull requests and synthesize our roadmaps. It's been fun to work with people from all sorts of different organizations in this effort. So the blog post has a good summary. It's on the Hyperledger blog, and explains that the work that we've done, that we as a community have done, and Hyperledger's Evernym is glad to be one part of that. So in this sprint, we have worked on some of these, documenting how payments work. We still need to get more done for on the Indy side for that documentation. We also went through on the Indy side to review the to-do and fix-me items in the SDK, clean up a lot of those and prioritize the ones that still need to happen, just code quality stuff, and fix some documentation. On the libsov token, the SDK plugin, the Indy SDK plugin that allows the Sovrin token to work in clients. We got out the 0.97 release that has the updated Rust. It works with the latest Indy SDK. We encourage people to play with that. It should work well. We got it working on Windows with manual builds, and we did some bug fixes, a lot of cleanup. And as we talked about in the last sprint demo, we documented how the Sovrin token works. Brent Zundell helps us with that, and you can hear more about that in last week's 2 weeks ago, the last sprint demo that's posted on YouTube. And we also have a script that allows distributing tokens on the Sovrin test networks, BuilderNet and StagingNet. That script still needs to be integrated in with the hosting platform that the Sovrin Foundation manages, and they're in that process. But when they're ready, we'll be able to let people play with it on those networks. On the Indy node side, we have fixed a bunch of bugs. That's pretty much the summary, and continued the work on getting the token to use the new auth rules on Indy. If you check the previous sprint demos, the last 3, we've been in the process of moving authorization rules to the config ledger and making them much more flexible and having them support multi-signature. And we've been working on getting the token to support that. So, and we've been doing some load testing. That's the main information there. On the Indy side, we've also, you can see us continuing that work. So we believe the audit ledger is ready for usage. It hasn't been released yet, but the work is done. And once we get the multi-signature stuff done, we'll be able to do that release. So we expect that to come out soon, probably at the end of the next sprint. So that's the summary of what we've completed. With that, Artem is next to show us the token minting tool he's added. It lives in the Sovrin Foundation Steward Tools repo. Here's the pull request. But I'm going to stop sharing and let Artem take over.
Hello everyone. So I'd like to start my demo. It's demo about token Nikitin. It's a simple graphic user interface which allows sending a mint transaction to the ledger. This minting can be done by using Indy, but sometimes it can be not clear which step should be done next. And we created this simple graphic user interface to simplify this process, which will lead you through required steps. So now I would like to issue some tokens on payment address. I used my Indy to did some preparation steps like creation wallet, the IDs in this wallet. By default, Ledger requires a signature of 3 trustees for issue tokens. I've created these 3 DIDs. They're listed over there. All of them has trustee role on the ledger. And also I've created a payment address. This payment address doesn't have tokens yet. Let's check again. It's correct. And now I will issue some tokens to this payment address. Let's start. I also have token mine run it. First, we need to build transaction. I'll copy payment address from my Indy, put it here. And now I want to create a transaction which will grant 100 of tokens. Select the file, let's call it mint. Great, transaction has been successfully created. Let's check it. Well, this is my transaction now. It doesn't have any signatures. So let's sign it by all 3 trustees. Let's do it first time. Select my file, select output file, and save. Let's check. Reloaded our file. So we see 1 signature has been added to this file. In real use case, this file should be sent to the next trustee, which will sign this transaction. Also, for my demo, I'll sign the same file by the next DID. To this, I again open wallet. This time, I choose the second DID. Select the same file, put the same file as output result, and sign. Check again. The second signature has been added. And sign the last third time. Select third DID, choose the same file, put output file. So we have a transaction, main transaction which is ready for sending to the ledger. So I'm the last trustee and I'm sending this transaction. I select the file and do the sending. Application says that transaction has been successfully sent. Let's check. This payment address has tokens now. Oh, success. We have a UTXO and which tell us that 100 tokens are present on this payment address. This token minting utility now is in pull request status. There is README which reflects how we can install or build this. If you want to run it from sources, you need the Python 3. Also, there are Ubuntu Debian packages, which contains also libindy and libsoft-token dependencies, and Windows package, which contains executable file. But for Windows, you need download libsoft-token libindy manual. That's it. Thank you.
That's really nice. That'll make it a lot easier to meet the governance needs of the Sovrin network. I want to be clear, clarify, Artem. When you started running that, it had pre-populated the number of tokens and the payment address. Is that correct?
Yes, there is a config file which for now is committed on my repository, and the token utility gets configuration of it from there.
That's great. So when the Sovrin network governance, the board of trustees approves moving forward, or if they approve moving forward with a token, then they can set the config file, and the only thing that the trustees have to do is run the tool to do the signature and pass it around. It allows them to approve all the details, the number of tokens and where it's going, but it can be managed. They don't have to cut and paste all those values and things. So that's really valuable. That'll make that process much easier. So thank you for that, Artem. That'll help a lot, and I expect that tool is gonna be useful for a number of other transactions that are going to be done for network maintenance over time, now that we have multi-signatures. Very good, thank you. And next Nikita's gonna share with us the plan to improve integration testing in libsoft token. You're on mute, Nikita.
Yeah, sorry. So during the examination of subtoken piece code, we found out that some of the tests are missing, and we made a plan for testing, especially for the view change cases, catch-up cases, and cases when we do some transactions that chain one after another. So like one expert from is using the UTXOs that were created from the previous expert, in the same batch. So here are the tests. They are like marked. They are divided into groups like catch-up tests, then cases, that includes batching and chaining other transactions, and then cases that include view change. So here, there we have like around 20. Here we can see like 21 cases. Their amount can be increased. Yeah, and we can write some new tests that if we like wonder of some. And some cases are already implemented. And that's it. And in the next sprint, I think we will implement these tests. So that's it.
Excellent. It's been great to see this team gain confidence in this code base. We had two separate teams at Evernym work on the code base in order to ensure best practices and broad compliance with standards and things. And it's great to see this team go through and find some areas where we can bolster our confidence with additional testing. I think that's going to be a useful effort. So expect to see those tests complete over the next couple of sprints. And then Andrew's going to take us through the changes to how fees are set and received as we've moved things to the config ledger.
Let me share my screen.
Looks good.
Well, during the sprint, I was working on replacing set fees approach by authrun. Set fees approach is a TXN-like approach. First of all, let's tell about set fees logic. Set fees needs to set up cost of some kind of transaction. Generally, it's a map of TXN type as a key and fees count as a value. But for now, we have a couple of actions that we can do, for example, by sending an TXN, like adding new steward, promotion, demotion, actions, etc. Setting fees to some value means that all of names TXN require some fees, and it's bad because we cannot set different fees for different actions. Well, for example, if we set fees for NIM to 42, it means that all of actions require fees 42, and it's bad. Resuming, we have next positive and negative moments. Positive, it's easy to test and the implementation and validation process. And negative, the most important thing that we cannot divide action. For example, NIM section like promotion, demotion, etc. And also set fees TXN can affect TXN validation. It's also bad. About fees of authorizer, the main difference is it's an action-like approach. We can set fees for each action. For example, we can set different fees for adding new steward or promotion, demotion, etc. Also fees validation without hooks. It means that we don't use validation from hooks. We use a general way for validation, like in authorization process. Set fees command for now it's equal to authrun transaction. Authrun transaction needs to change some default behavior for authrun, and sending authrun transaction we can set fees for each action what we want. And get fees for now it's equal to get authrun action. And can pay fees logic, it's a validation logic move to authorization process. And it's for now it's more cleanly to understand what's going on during the validation NIM transaction with fees, for example. In general, fees validation workflow looks like we first of all we doing some general authorization process for NIM. For example, it's we check roles, we check owners, and etc. And then we check that if metadata includes field named fees, then we run a can pay fees procedure. For example, authrun transaction with fees looks like on slide. The main difference is that for now we can send some fees into a metadata section of constraint paths authrun transaction. Okay, that's all from my side.
That's great. That represents 3 months of work, I think, to add, move things to the config ledger, add multi-signature, and then update fees. We recognize that it will require some changes to the code of the applications that are currently using the old way to set fees and get fees, but it'll provide a much more flexible approach. So thank you, Andrew, for taking us through that. That was good. Going forward, on the Indy node side, we're going to get this release done and make multi-signatures available to people, as well as the audit ledger. So that'll be, expect that over the next couple of weeks. And then we'll continue on the SDK to, we need to release of the ledger plugins as well that completes the work with set fees and get fees. So that'll be really good. On the SDK side, we need to get the automated builds of libsoft token on Windows going, and we want to make it easier to set fees using the new system, in general, adopting the changes that Andrew just talked about. Once we finish that, we're largely done with the token side of things, and we move on to implementing the transaction author agreement. And that we've talked about in a couple of the Indy working groups. The stewards of the Sovrin Foundation are very concerned about regulatory compliance, and they want to make sure that people who write to the ledger understand the implications of writing to a global public ledger, an indelible public ledger, a immutable public ledger. So we're going to change the ledger to require signatures of this transaction author agreement, to require acceptance of it. And the CLI and SDK, the SDK needs to provide APIs for clients to do that acceptance process, sign the transaction author agreement, and the CLI has to take people through that step of accepting the agreement, so that other people can see how it's done and what the best practice in the ecosystem is expected to be. So that's what's coming down over the next couple of weeks, next 2 to 4 weeks. At that point, we should have a token that people can play with. Will meet the requirements requested by the Sovereign Network Governance, and they can decide what they want to do with that token going forward. It needs to be approved by, go through all the governance process steps that are remaining for them to decide what they want to do. So thank you very much. You can reach out to us at chat.hyperledger.org. That's a Rocket Chat instance where we hang out in the Indy channels, mostly Indy Node and Indy SDK. Of course, we are always interested in pull requests and Jira issues, however you'd like to collaborate with us. Reach out to us with questions, and we look forward to working with you more. We should post the video before the end of the month, in about 2 weeks from now. Thank you. Bye.